All right. So my camera cuts off on me every now and then. It just does it. And when I go over the other way, sometimes I screw up. But anyway, so I got everything packed up for tonight. Uh, I'll be working tomorrow, but I'm excited now because the first song of this that I recorded in here is now mostly finished. I still got to do the mastering and then put it to CD, and then I got to make a video. Try to think of a really, really low tech solution for a video. Something that people would actually watch more than once. But the song is actually pretty good. I could do the bass over again. There's a couple of little sloppy stuff in there, but for the most part, the bass is doing its job in there, and like having a 5-string bass gives you a lot. I did a couple of weird things with it because I wanted it to just change the song a little bit, not to make it too dry. You know what I mean? So rather than double tracking my guitar, I distort my basses. But distortion does suck a lot of low end out of the bass too, which kills punchiness. So if you want to, I was listening to Andrew Boehner talking to the Spirit Box bassist, and what he was saying is like with distortion on basses, the trick is to have multi-layered distortion, so you get the frequencies to cut through. If you want it to cut through, I don't mind if the bass doesn't fully punch through. I know it's better if it does, because then you can hear the articulation of the bass. And for metal, particularly more of a progressive metal sound, it's definitely what you want, right? And buying equipment, like musical equipment, why you buy what you buy, if you don't do research, a lot of times people buy the same guitar over and over and over again, the same bass over and over again, and they don't realize why they buy like an extended range and stuff like that. Now, once you read up on extended range versus drop tunings. So you have your 6-string guitar and you do drop tunings forever and a day, and you like it. And it's like it's pretty close, but it doesn't. The drop tunings on the 6-string just I can't get that 8-string guitar sound, right? And vice versa. Maybe you buy a good 8-string guitar, it's the only guitar you have, and then you start to want to do lighter stuff, and it's like it just sounds too barbaric. You know what I mean? 8-strings are pretty fun. That guitar sound it's large enough for what I'm doing without double tracking it. It's just the gnarlness of an 8-string, right? But the bass adds extra gnarl in there, but it puts the low end in. But when you distort the bass, like for say like a doom metal sound, I would say this sounds more like doom death metal. So it's not, because it's not super super fast, right? The drums, it's the best recording of drums I've done. Maybe not so much sound wise, but playing wise, because my drum sounds are, pretty. I got an SM57 and an SM58, which is fine, but the BR1200 has a lot of limitations of what you can do. You can add more low end into the drums, and you can actually do a lot of EQing on the on the drums to make them sound a little more modern recording, but fill them out a bit more. But at the end of the day, you could still tell it was, like it doesn't sound like a high production using triggers and stuff like that. Like I can't get that sound without the triggers, right? That's why you buy them. And I can't really use triggers on that setup without. I'd have to buy a compressor and everything that can do all that, right? And a whole bunch of mics and everything or not mics, but a whole bunch of triggers. Which I might do triggers instead of buying mics. But if I want to play live, mics are better, because it's just easier. Some might argue the other way, but I don't know what I'll do for like in the future when if I make enough money to do it. But I know I do want mics and I do want triggers. A lot of people will use both for like amazing drum sounds, but you need a mixer then to be able to hook all that. And then you need something to convert the triggers from an impulse to an actual sound, right? So to a digital sound. So you need it's not just as simple as just buying one thing. Like to set it up, you have to really do a lot of research. So when you're buying your equipment, whether it's a guitar, whether it's a bass, whatever, you got to do a lot of research. But you can, work with what you got to see what it can do first, right? And with that little Ibanez bass, it's nothing. There's nothing fancy about that bass, whatever. You don't even concentrate on that bass at all when you play it because it's such a utilitarian piece of equipment. It's just a tool, right? You only focus on the playing. Like there's no, I've got this $8,000 bass and it's so awesome. Like you're not thinking that. You're just like, okay, how does the song go? Okay, how do I make it sound cool? Do your job. Do your job, bass. Just do your job. That's one good thing about it. But it does have limitations, and I'm going to do a video on my bass, and I don't have a bass amp yet, and that's one of the next things on my list. I mean, I do tools, I do a toy. When I buy stuff, I buy more tools than I do toys. But when I get a chance to buy a toy, the next toy is not like I still need new acoustic guitars. I still got to find a piano for in here. Whether it's going to be, I think I'm going to have to go digital just because of the way. I'm not saying it's going to fall through my floor, but an 1,100-pound piano might fall through my floor. I do got the screw jacks out there to, kind of hopefully keep it from doing that. But 130-pound piano versus a 1,300-pound piano might be a smarter choice. It's just I would like the idea of that if the power went out, I could still play music, right? Having an acoustic piano is kind of the best, but digital has its advantages too, right? Especially when it comes to recording and stuff, when you can just plug straight in to the BR1200 and just go with that sound. It'll be good enough. You know what I mean? Like the purists are always, these tone purists, doesn't matter if it's violins, guitars, basses, whatever. Nothing's ever good enough for them. And most of the time, the tones that they rave about are digital. Like that's the most awesome bass sound I've ever heard. Yeah, it was all done on a freaking computer, man. Right? You know what I mean? Like it was like, okay, maybe the bass was actually used, but like it was, like it's plugins. That's all plugins, right? I'm not using plugins per se. I'm using the analog version of plugins in that I can use. That's what I use for this bass. So I have like bass simulators in there and bass effects in there, as well as guitar effects. And I used a punk for the country part. I used a punk flange distorted sound on the bass. It actually sounded pretty cool. I'll have to fade it in a little bit more so that it doesn't overtake the song too much. So I'm going to be playing around with the faders when I do the final mix down. I'll have to know where to put the faders up, where to put the faders down. And just like play it like that. And then, just kind of figure out where it's going to mix the best. So there's a little bit of work left to do before the final bounce. I can bounce track it now, but to do the mastering, that's like when you do that final mastering and everything like that, you bounce it to the bounce track. Once it's on the bounce track, that's it. The bounce track is your kind of like, that's the final destination before you burn it to CD, which I guess I have a CD burner built into that thing. That's how I transfer it to my other computer. Yes, older technology. I can probably get it off of a USB or whatever, but it's the CD works the best. I can transfer it to a computer, but the CD works the best. So whenever that CD burner goes, my recording machine is pretty much done. But once I get that done the way I want and mixed and everything, yeah, it was my cousin. The mix down and everything done. Life is going to be pretty interesting because it'll be like, okay, that is going to be my most. I understand, like people will listen to it and they'll know it's not like done in a professional studio. I get that, but it's like this round of recording is different than any of the other recordings I've done in the past because I have all the time in the world to work on them. I'm the only person down here, right? So, whereas before it's like, okay, my dad leave the house for 2-3 hours. see if I can get the vocals done in 2 or 3 hours. And sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And the next time you might leave the house when I have the house to myself, it would have been maybe like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, so I can't just record when I want. And up there, like I didn't bother recording the amps. My Hot Rod Deluxe, this is the first time that amp is ever recorded, which it sounds good. Like like if you want a clean sounding and you're just using it for cleans, pretty hard to beat a Hot Rod Deluxe. It will cut through just about anything. This thing, okay, yes, is is a very awesome cabinet. It's the most awesome cabinet ever. And I've had it since '91, right? I worked so hard as a teenager to buy that, and money well spent. It's the first time this thing has been recorded with the BR1200, just because when I lived in my apartment in the city back in pre 2008, I couldn't really crank that sucker up. So that thing has been sitting up here for a good while, like a decade and a bit, without hardly being used. Mind you, I got my money's worth out of this thing like crazy. And then I had this in my apartment, and you can never play it past 1.5 because it's so damn loud. So I never got to record them, at a volume where, okay, yeah, when you want to hear what that Mesa Boogie sounds like, you got to crank it up a bit to get those speakers moving, right? And flapping the pant legs, whatever. But what I do is I close off the room, because this room really tightens up sound on both the guitars and the drums. It's actually a really good recording room. It was too much reverb when I pulled the linoleum out. It was just way too much reverb in here, like too much reverberation. But just with a little bit of dampening on the walls, it's made a world of difference, and it's like almost a perfect recording room. So what I do when I crank that thing up is I close the door a bit, and I sit here with the recording thing, just so I'm not in the same room with it, right? And and also my aunt and uncles, it kind of cut down a bit on the sound for them. So so that's where I'm at with that. It's been I didn't get any work done down here today at all, other than kicking Marvin out of my house about twice. God knows how much he stole from me already, of the black walnuts there coming in. I know he can't get them underneath the wall, so that's good. But he's probably going to have them all over my house. I'll be like, why is there a black walnut here? Oh, that was Marvin. I know it was Marvin, because I caught him like 5 times. So I'm going to have to Marvin-proof the place. Chippy doesn't come in. He hasn't been inside yet. That's the little chipmunk. But he's not as tame as Marvin is. Marvin's not like tame. He's just greedy, and he knows I won't hurt him, so he's going to rob me blind, the little bugger. Well, maybe I will hurt him. You see if he, yeah. Nah, I won't hurt him. So my next process is writing the songs themselves for Pinto and Tomahawk. I don't even want to plug in that side of my brain that starts thinking of lyrics. It's like I have a compartment in my brain that just deals with song lyrics, right? Whether it's remembering song lyrics from somebody else's song or doing my own, right? And I don't engage that unless I have a pen and paper right away, which tonight I'll start putting down lyrics for Pinto and some lyrics for Tomahawk. Tomahawk, I really think that one's going to come out really cool. Will it be as good as the Black Braid stuff? I don't know. That's I think they're the King Dog black metal band right now. They put out some pretty cool stuff. If you like that kind of stuff, like black metal is, trust me, it's for a few. It's not for many. Most people. But it's amazing how see, black metal sucks, right? It's supposed to suck, right? The old black metal was, because nobody would record any of that in a studio, just because they can't make money off it. It's like, whom we're going to sell to? 5 people? There's 5 sickos out there that listen to this, right? So what ends up happening is that people do like what I was doing, like rent some recording equipment, try to do it themselves, and they have no idea what they're doing, and they have like a recording equipment for a weekend. You're not going to get much done in the weekend. Your songs are going to really suck. You own the recording equipment, like I do, which is not the greatest equipment, and you could spend 3 weeks making a song. The song's much better. But what I would recommend before you record anything, get your song, learn your song, right? Record it with a metronome, just so when you go to record it, you don't have to do a whole bunch of rearranging to get everything to fit properly. Uh, and figure out what your tempos are going to be at what points of the song. Because this song is the first time I did a song where the tempo actually changes from part A, part B. But I'm able to punch in on that. I'm able to do everything a modern studio can do. It's you know, digital analog, so to speak. It's still digital, but it's digital analog from 2006. So it's effects quality from 2006 if I'm using the onboard effects, which surprisingly most of it's not bad. The big one is just getting the levels right when you're recording. If you're using the mics particularly, so that you're not peaking everything, so that you don't have to, like, when you're in a digital workspace, and you can see exactly what you have to pull away. They almost got it down to a science so much now that, like, 3 days working with a sound engineer, you'll know how to, it's all okay. Well, you take this frequency away, and you're good. There's hardly any experimentation in that sense, because you just know, well, this works and that doesn't, right? And a lot of people spent years and years and years figuring this out for people, right? Which means what you could learn as a sound engineer in probably 3 months probably took 30 years ago. So that said, there's still the experiment phase, but I'm still doing it the way they did 30 years ago, with mics in the room with the amp, right? There's still digital's superior in a lot of ways, because you got a perfect signal every time, right? But there's still things that you can't get from digital. It gets close, but you can't quite get it the same way, right? So, I'm not saying that I'm the purist. I'm only going to use amps and nothing but real amps. No, if I could get better sounding digital stuff, yeah, obviously that's the direction I'll go. It cuts down on amplifiers. Like, again, you get 5 amplifiers in here, you got 500 pounds. 400 or 500 pounds. Like, it doesn't take, if you got stacks in here anyway. So you got to consider that too. So, I do want amps for live rigs, but even that's changing. Like, everybody's going through the PA now with these floor model amps that you can hook it to a speaker or not. Just run it right to the front of the house and have speaker emulation. So it sounds like they're miking a cab anyway. And the thing about that is that makes life so much easier. Like, a lot of the big concert venues, they're like, no, don't bring amplifiers, because we're, it's way too much work. Getting microphones and, on every amplifier and trying to control the feedback. This is your sound. Okay, program in 50 Marshall stacks. There you go. Fine, you'll get 50 Marshall stack sounds. Put it in there. We'll plug it straight into the PA. Let the PA do all the heavy lifting, and you don't have all that clutter on the actual stage. So, like, the bigger bands can do this, but little guys like myself, okay, let's say I have no musical equipment whatsoever, but I learned how to play, and I'm going to go play live, and I have to buy musical equipment. And I have a budget of, say, $2,000. Okay, so I'm not going to buy the most extravagant guitar, but I'm going to buy something probably pretty good. My recommendations would be anything Ibanez Geo is probably going to be fine, right? And is that right? Hope that's not right. I buy, say, a little combo amp, Black Star, or anything that can line out to whatever. So I got a little combo amp that has a speaker. Maybe it's like a little Boss Cantana. I'm looking at the Boss Cantanas because they got everything built into them. And get one with a foot pedal. Okay, so you're going to spend like $500-600 on the amp. Okay, but you got a 100-watt amp. Fine for any places where you can't plug into the PA, but this is something that can also go direct line out to the PA. Why carry a Marshall stack around or a Mesa Boogie stack around if you didn't have to? Like, back in the day, my Randall HT100 head could go right straight to house, meaning I didn't have to carry that big heavy mesa boogie. I could go straight to house, and that was back in the '90s. Not too many amps could do that. That was better than miking. You know what I mean? It was just a direct signal right off an XLR cable right into the PA system. It was just a wall of me. It was awesome. My other roommate, guitar player, he ended up getting the same thing I had because he was a big Dimebag Darrell fan, and whatever. So we both had the same Randall head as our power amps, and then we each had our rack effect or pedal board or whatever we had at the time. I had rack effects at the time. I don't miss rack effects. That was a lot of cables. you had to, it was just a lot of stuff to lug around, right? Now it's all in one pedal, you know. Like the Blackstar Amp 3. Like if you were going to fly around the world and play on big stages and you didn't want to bring an amp, you'd bring that. You could put that in your carry-on. You know what I mean? And then like an XLR cable and maybe two spare cables, or if you had one of those wireless systems, like you could do it all in one good size overhead bag. You can have all your clothes in there for your 2 weeks or 3 weeks that you're on tour. And okay, you're going to go to do laundry a lot. You can also buy clothes while you're there. Just leave the clothes there, donate them to charity. Go play a show, and here you go, donate it to charity. You don't have to spend expensive, right? And then get like a headless guitar or something like that for traveling. But if you're on a really tight budget of say $1,000, you could probably still get like a 50-watt amp of some sort with a plug right into the PA system with an AB channel at least. And then you could buy like my Zoom pedal, which was like $100. There's all your effects, and then go buy a Jackson Dinky or an Ibanez Geo, whatever. You could do it for $1,000, and I would start there. That's where I would start, and I would keep that equipment until I can upgrade to just professional equipment. Don't take steps up. Just do leaps. Don't do steps. Right? When it comes to musical equipment, don't do leaps. Okay, if you're 20 years old and whatever, got your whole life ahead of you, you know what? Yeah, okay, buy this instrument, save up a bit, sell that instrument, buy another one, and upgrade like that. But why not just save up until you get what you want? Because it'll stop you from buying a gazillion instruments. When you get the tool that does the job, you don't buy as much. Like there's the lust of consumerism that gets you more than anything. And that's the biggest problem I have is when I look at stuff, most stuff, yes, I like to look at it, but it's therefore it's the guitar. Like there's so many guitars in the $1,000 range that I don't think are worth $1,000, right? There's a lot of basses like that. It's like, okay, yeah, it's the Ibanez Geo line, for example, for basses. If you buy the cheapest bass, up to about $600, you're still in the same. It's the same neck, the same body, the same pickups, the same frets, the same everything, right? So buy the cheapest version of that if you want to save money. And unless you like, okay, well, I'm going to buy that. That's good enough for me, but I'm going to buy the fancy one. I'll pay an extra $200 for that. The fancy looking. So knowing what you're buying is a big one, right? Like if you look at the specs of all my guitars, they're all phenomenal guitars. Even the cheapest one, my Jackson JS32 Flying V, it was a $500 guitar, I think, tax, $400 or $500 tax and all. Great guitar, but it definitely had its limitations. With the Floyd Special, right? It could do most of what I wanted it to do, but it just couldn't go that little extra mile. Where the Floyd 1000 on my very awesomely bang for the buck Charvel, which was a $1,600 guitar brand new, went on sale for $1,050 or something like that. Came out just a little under $1,300 delivered. That's like a guitar, like as good as a guitar is going to get. You know what I mean? Like there might be other guitars that maybe they're a little more comfier to play or whatever, but anything you could play on the best guitar in the world, if you could find the best, whatever the best guitar in the world would be, if you could find the best guitar in the world, whatever I'd be able to play on that one, I could still play on the Charvel. and that sharp L is pretty hard to beat. Like the quality of it's really good. It's going to be an instrument that I'm going to have for a long, long, long time, right? Unless something really blows my mind. It's like, oh man, this guitar is so much better than everything I have. I'll spend the money on it. But I'm at the point where it's like, how do I get better than what I have? You know what I mean? Like there's good, like my Jackson Rhodes V is the best sounding guitar I've ever owned. Well, for distortion and thrash metal, it's like it's such a great sounding guitar. Like in the room, it blows your mind. I can't wait to hear it through a big PA system. That's going to be awesome, right? And I've recorded with it quite a bit. I do have to change the strings on it big time though. And the thing is that like for me, I'm not saying I'm going to flog a whole bunch of guitars at any point because again, they're all really great guitars. But if I only had to keep two, and I wanted to refinance, say a better recording equipment, I could flog a guitar for that, or trade, or whatever, or trade for like a really good bass, upper end bass. Trading is, to me is, if you're getting, knowing what you're getting and you're getting good quality, trading is a good way to go. I am going to get a really, really good bass at one point, but I'm so blown away by how good the Ibanez Geo is. And it's not like I haven't tried $5,000 basses and $3,000 basses and stuff like that. Like, I go into a music store, and my whole advice to everybody is, like, if you have an Ibanez Geo, entry level model, okay, go try the Prestige so you can get a comparison. Because a lot of guys think that if you pay more, you get more. If you can play everything on that you could play on the Prestige, you could play it on the Geo, you got to ask yourself, okay, well, if the playability is not the issue, what am I paying for? Well, you might be paying for a little bit extra aesthetics for sure, better fit and finish, and just the materials, and then after that, okay, yeah, better pickups will sound a little bit better. They'll sound a little fuller. Maybe the highs and lows will be a little more clarity. That stuff is like that much. You know what I mean? It's that much. The whole tone argument, it's that much, right? My worst sounding guitar still sounds awesome. You know what I mean? Like it's that good, right? So when you pay this much more, you really only get that much more. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. And it's the same with violins and everything. You paid $20,000 for a violin. You could find probably a $400 violin that'll sound just as good and play just as good. And then nobody wants to hear that, but that's the truth. It's just the truth. And trust me, as a guy who went looking, and you probably saw the videos a couple of years back on this channel, looking for the best, violin under $16 million. I did a sensational title just for joke, whatever. But it was true. What I was finding, that it wasn't so much. Oh. That sounds like great. Someone's going to get wet going home. That somebody's going to be me. Yeah. But anyway, like the sound quality is. Power up. I don't hear my fridge. Hopefully there's stuff to eat there, because if the power's going to be up for the next couple of days, that's going to suck. But bottom line is, I look at equipment and I give advice for, like, especially newer players and stuff like that. Like, if you're going to buy, let's say you've never played a musical instrument in your life, okay, and you want to get into it, okay, go buy, and say it's a guitar. Maybe it's a bass, go buy something that's decent for learning on. So the Walmart stuff, don't touch it. Just don't. Yeah, it's a $150 guitar that you can't play at all. Like, you'll never learn on it. Like the $30 guitars, the $50, like, don't even look at them. Don't even look at them. But just buy the guitar. Don't buy the amp. Wait 2 months to buy. Even if you have the money, just hang on to the money. Don't buy the amp right away. Why? Because what will happen is in 3 months' time, you've got the first week, 2 weeks you played it, you were learning and everything like that, and you haven't touched it since. Hold off. Okay, it's 3 months. Okay, well maybe you'll pick it up again. Okay, wait a year. Okay, and then suddenly you get this inspiration. You're off for the winter or whatever. You've learned. You're learning. Okay, you're going to stick with it. Then go buy the amp. By that time, maybe hold off. Oh, I can afford a little cheap practice amp. Hold off. Hold off until you can buy if you're going to stick with it, go buy like if you could buy a really good amp right from day one, 50 watts, 100 watts, whatever, something that you can play live with. Do your research, because it's amazing, little amps like this right now. The thing about the little amps is usually don't have like a foot switch to switch channels, right? So you got all these effects and everything, but you're stuck on one channel and you have to switch it by hand. Say, okay, well, what if I want to switch from a clean channel to a whatever? Get an amp that'll do that. Maybe you spend $600 on your first amp, but it's like a year after you've been playing and you're going to stick with it, and now you got an amp that you're not going to have to upgrade for 20 years. Like when I bought that tubed amp, that was 2005. Right, that's a 20-year-old amp. I'm finally recording it for the first time. It's getting rough. It's getting crackly and everything. But it's one of those things I find when I use it if I use it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and just keep moving the knobs and everything, all the crackliness goes away. It still has the original tubes in it. I know. How dare I? But it's still, you can still get it. Just you have to wait 25 minutes for it to sound good. That's all. It does the job, right? But I bought that amp and it served me well for 20 years. Spend the money once rather than buying this amp and, okay, I'll just get the cheaper one. No, get what you need, not so much what's cheap, because there's a lot of inexpensive out there that's not cheap. You'd be surprised once you get playing. And you really, for example, the bass. If I was to buy another bass all over again, if I would have known that there was a 6-string version of that bass, I would have spent the extra $100 for that 6-string bass and been playing that for the past year and a half, because I'd be that much better on. I'm over 2 years on that bass now. I've been meaning to get a better one. Like I'm looking at 6-string basses and stuff like that. But right now, it's going to be spring before I can even think about that, unless I get lucky and get a lot of money somehow, where I can spend that. Because I got expenses coming up, like everything. Most of my big expenses for the season are done, like the insurances and stuff like that. But there's still like Christmas is coming around the corner, so I'd like to be able to buy my nephew something nice and whatever, and just get it. Maybe everybody else gift cards or whatever. I don't know. I hate gift cards because it's like, okay, let them know you really didn't put any effort in. Mind you, most people actually prefer the gift card because they can buy what they want with it, right? So it's just, I don't know. I like to make it look like I put an effort in. But it's going to be a very tight season, right? And I don't want to put stuff on the credit card if I don't have to, especially when I don't have a lot of work. But in the spring, when I know the work is going to pick up, that's when I buy stuff. I have, for example, a better part of $800 put aside for, a new bike, right, for next year, like a cyclist bike, right? Because God knows how long I'll be out of a vehicle and whatever. But I just want a good bike that I'm going to, whether I have a car or not, because I like cycling. I still like it. It's just, I don't like cycling a 48-pound bike, and then go work all day and then have to cycle back, right? 26-kilometer round trip. That's fine when you have the day off or whatever. Who cares? But when you got to go and do intense labor and then try to cycle home in your work boots and stuff, it's not so fun. It's just not fun at all. Yeah, I got that money, but I might divert that to the bass amp, just because it's enough to buy a really good trainer bass amp. And then when I buy that bass amp, guys, that'll be my forever bass amp. Like it's just, I'm not saying I won't get another bass amp later on, but like, I know what I need, and buying exactly what I need, it's like, okay, I bought it, now I can move on to something else. Where if you don't buy exactly what you need, you're always lussicating stuck on the next cheap guitar, the next cheap bass, the next, underpowered amp or whatever. Where it's like, okay, it'll take me 3 times longer to buy this, but when I buy it for good, and it's done, unless something happens to it, right? And like going back now with my BR1200, okay, that was $1,600 back in 2006. I think I should have spent the $2,000 on the BR1600. You know what I mean? Exact same machine, just extra channels. Because the problems I'm running into now is I run out of channels, right? You say, we got 12 channels. No, it's only, you got to cut everything in half. Because first you subtract 2 channels for the bounce track. So now if it's 16, it's really only 14 channels. And then you've got that bass / drum channel, which is 1. So now you're kind of down again. So you really don't have full 8, the full 8 to work with, right? Or 16 to work with. You might only have 13 or 14 channels to work with. And if that's the case, you should be able to get most rock metal band stuff recorded within that. But what if you wanted to do, like, say, 3 vocalists, multi-layered vocals, a whole bunch of like folk instruments, everything like that, then you're talking like 24 to 32 channel recorder, right? And they do offer those analog recorders like this, which they're kind of going away. Like that's becoming obsolete because everybody does everything on the laptop, right? But it's nice to have an actual analog mixer because it's just so real time and easy to work with. You're not sitting there with a mouse trying to click things up, click things down. You know what I mean? Like it's just really, really tactile, right? And I like that. So it's just, are they going to keep making these things? Like I think like any sort of digital portable studio is kind of run its course, and whatever's out there is out there, and that's it. And like what some people are doing is getting a big mixer, running it into an audio interface, and then into their computer, which is fine. But now you have all these things, right? Where that's one box. It's just there. You know what I mean? So that's, to me, works really well. Now, I might be able to, get the ability to record more things with more channels. If you get a mixer, like say you got a big mixer, 24 or 32 or 72 track mixer, and everybody's playing live at the same time, yeah, that would be no problem. You can have full mics on the drums, you could have full mics everywhere, right? And you could do that all in one shot. But when you're doing it one instrument at a time, like I'm doing, which that's how most people put their songs together, it does run into a bit of a problem. And that problem, it's not a hard problem to solve, but the solution is basically you need more tracks, right? You need to be able to just get more tracks on there. And that means you need a new machine. So, yeah, that's where that's at. The other option is go completely digital with an audio interface, but then you need a computer that can run that kind of because like some like PCs, some of them are not powerful enough to record, so you get like a little clip every now and then of it like buffering, right? And nobody wants that in their recordings. So again, these things are designed to do that. You could probably record for like 2 hours straight before you'd get a clip. And, like some of the digital programs out there are like that, right? Where people complain about it. It's like, oh, it's got this bug in it, it's got this bug in it. Overall, it's pretty good, but, they need to update the software and blah, blah, blah. And the other problem with the digital home recording is, and it's the biggest problem I see, is that you can't just buy something and it works. It's like, oh no, you got to buy it and then pay for a subscription to keep it functioning. It's like, no, I'll go with the BR1200, right? So it's nice, simple. It does the job. So, like effects wise, the other thing I could do is, especially like with effects pedals and stuff like that. That's one way around it with this machine where, okay, the internal effects are, yeah, they're okay. I played around with them, but they're kind of cheap sounding, right? But they'll work. It's an ideas machine. But if you just have a blank channel with no effects on it from there, you can work all that out on a pedal, a really good quality foot pedal, put it in there. As for guitar, for bass, you can get a vocal effects processor. So you can buy like 3 pedals, and that's the equivalent of upgrading that thing. It's just you have to use the virtual tracks for more channels. So, which I've got to do some reading on the virtual track stuff. That's my next phase where, that way, the thing with the virtual tracks is you have to mix them perfectly. So, because you have, like your 2 tracks, but you can put, multiple tracks on that track, but they have to be mixed in perfectly because you can't mix each track independent when after you record it, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, they're both at the same volume, but if you recorded the bass a little bit too loud, you got to record it again and have it mixed, because when you mix them, you're mixing all those tracks on those 2 tracks together. So I don't know if people understand what I mean by virtual tracks, but it's basically, I could do 192 tracks on there with the virtual tracks, but on the analog tracks, it's only 12, right? But it's really 10 that you can really do. So when you're adding like extra vocals, extra whatever sound effects, whatever it be, extra instruments, whatever it's going to be, that's where you're going to run into your problems of not just being able to have its own independent channels and be able to mix down like that. You can do it, but it's a longer, slower process because you have to take the long way around to make it work, and you have to get it right from the source. Whereas if, like, say, I record the bass a little too loud or the guitar a little too loud, I can independently turn them up and down, but whatever else is on that guitar and or bass channels, what's going to happen is when I turn that down, you might not hear the other thing, or the other thing, like they might not adjust evenly together. You know what I mean? Even though they're both on the same channel. So channels, because you use 2 channels at a time to get a stereo split. So anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at. I know these are long videos. I don't know if anybody watches them. Maybe you do, but it's just stuff I like to talk about and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that because I got to get a little bit done before I head back up home, before I get rained on. Anyway, there we go.